As we have all heard, the BRICS plan to launch a new currency. This is a currency that they will make every day among all member states of the BRICS. In addition, this is an attempt to end the dollar's dominance in the market, which has been dominating for years. But with the launch of this new BRICS currency, do you think the dollar will actually end? Do you think the dominance of the dollar will come to an end? Let's find out. Today, we will look at the end of the dollar's dominance with the launch of the BRICS currency. But before we continue, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more great updates. For a few years now, there have been talks of de-dollarization. Sometime in March, Alexander Babakov, the deputy chairman of Russia's State Duma, gave a statement while in New Delhi, claiming that Russia is now spearheading the development of a new currency. This currency will be used during cross-border trade among the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. A few weeks after this, Brazil's president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva chimed in on this matter. He said that he asked himself, why do all countries have to base their trade on the dollar? These developments complicate the narrative that the dollar's reign is stable, mainly because it is the one-eyed money in a land of blind individual competitors such as the euro, yen, and yuan. An economist once said, Europe is a museum, Japan is a nursing home, and China is a jail. And if you think about it, this economist was not wrong. However, with a BRICS currency circulating, it could change the entire narrative. It would be like a new union of up-and-coming discontents that, on the scale of GDP, now collectively outweigh not only the leader at the top of the chain, which is the United States, but the entire G7 weight class altogether. For years now, foreign governments have always wanted to liberate themselves from relying on the US dollar. So if you hear about this now, this is not new. Since the 1960s, there have always been murmurs in many foreign capitals about a desire to get rid of the dollar, and these murmurs would always make it to the headlines. However, all this talk and murmuring has yet to be put into action so that we can see some results. If you look at the statistics, the dollar is now used in about 84.3% of the cross-border trade in the country, while the Chinese yuan is only used in 4.5%. However, the Kremlin's habitual use of lies as an instrument of statecraft has brought about a lot of skepticism about anything that Russia says. When you think of the answers to some practical questions, such as how much the other BRICS nations are on board with Babakov's proposal, they remain pretty unclear. Despite all that, based on economics, a BRICS currency's prospects for success are new and seem promising. But even though there are early plans for it, or no matter how many practical questions are still unanswered, such a currency could really knock the US dollar off its feet as the reserve currency, especially among the BRICS members. And unlike competitors proposed in the past, such as a digital yuan, this hypothetical currency has the potential to take, or at least shake, the dollar's dominance in the world. Let's see how this would happen. We will assume that the hypothetical currency is called the BRIC. If the BRICS members were to use only the BRIC for international trade, they would have removed any obstacles in their way, thwarting their efforts to escape the dominance of the dollar. Such actions would start taking the form of bilateral agreements to denominate trade in other currencies apart from the dollar, such as the yuan. And the yuan is now the main currency of trade between China and Russia. Speaking of obstacles, what exactly are they? The main one is Russia's unwillingness to source the rest of its imports from China. So, after bilateral transactions have been made between the two countries, Russia tends to want to spend its proceeds on dollar-denominated assets to buy the rest of its imports from the rest of the world. However, the rest of the world still uses the dollar in trading. However, let's look at a scenario where China and Russia used only the BRIC for trade. If this were to happen, Russia would not have any need to park the proceeds of bilateral trade in dollars. How can they do this if they use BRICs instead of dollars to buy the rest of their imports? And if this were to happen, de-dollarization would begin. The question we must first ask ourselves is it realistic to imagine that the BRICs could actually use the BRIC for trade? The answer is yes. For starters, they could start by funding their import bills by themselves. In 2022 alone, the BRICs ran a trade surplus, also known as a balance of payments surplus, of an estimated value of $387 billion. This is primarily thanks to China's vast market. In addition, the BRICS would also be poised to achieve a certain level of self-sufficiency when it comes to international trade, which has managed to avoid the world's other currency unions. Given that a BRICS currency union would not be among countries united by shared territorial borders, the members would most likely be able to produce a broader range of goods than any other monetary union. It is worth noting that this BRICS currency union is unlike any other before it. There is an artifact of geographic diversity, which is an opening for a degree of self-sufficiency that has painfully eluded currency unions defined by geographic concentration. A great example is the Eurozone, which will have a $476 billion trade deficit in 2022. However, if the BRICS wanted to strengthen their currency, they would not need to trade only with each other. Given that each member of the BRICS grouping is an economic heavyweight in its own region, some countries around the world would likely be willing to do business with them in the BRIC. If Thailand felt the need to use the BRIC to do business with China, Brazil's importers could still purchase shrimp from Thai exporters, which would, in turn, keep Thailand's shrimp on Brazil's menus. Goods produced in one country can circumvent trade restrictions between two countries by being exported to and re-exported from a third country. This is primarily a consequence of new trade restrictions, such as tariffs. If the United States were to boycott bilateral trade with China rather than agree to trade in the BRIC, its children could still play with toys made in China that became exports to countries like Vietnam and then exports to the United States. This preview of the absolute worst-case scenario that could occur for consumers in BRICS countries if their governments were to adopt the BRIC or bust terms of trade comes from Russia's current methods. American and European governments have already prioritized Russia's economic isolation. However, one way or another, some US and European goods still find their way into Russia. Even though the costs for consumers are actual, they are not catastrophic, as the officials of the BRICS countries continue to be emphatic about their desire to de-dollarize. And with Russia setting an example of how bad it could actually get, the risk-reward trade-off of de-dollarization will look increasingly attractive. Because the BRICS runs a trade and balance of payments surplus, the BRIC would not need to attract any foreign money. The BRICS governments could use some combination of carrots and sticks to get their own households and firms to buy BRIC assets with their savings and effectively coerce and subsidize the market into existence. However, even if this were to happen, assets denominated in the BRIC would have characteristics likely to make them unusually attractive to foreign investors. One of the disadvantages of using gold as an asset class for global investors is that in spite of its risk-reducing value as a diversifier, it does not pay any interest whatsoever. The BRICS are planning on backing their new currency with gold and other metals with intrinsic value such as rare earth metals. And if they do this, interest-paying assets denominated in the BRIC would resemble interest-paying gold. This is an unusual characteristic. It could make the assets denominated in the BRIC attractive to investors looking for both the interest-bearing properties of bonds and the diversifying properties of gold. When the BRICS currency is launched, it could actually mean the end of the dollar's dominance. And if that were to happen, a lot of things would change. What do you think of the video? Feel free to let us know in the comments section below. Also, before you go, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing updates on some of the latest news around the world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.